welcome to Ashley's Kitchen. I was starting to make a recipe kind of with a new twist when I realized I needed to tape this. I don't know how this is going to turn out, so you might as well join me for this. Lately, I've been thinking about trying to substitute maple syrup and or honey in place of white refined sugar in things like cookies and desserts. I love desserts, but I know that sugar is so bad for you, the refined white sugar. So I've, for a while, toyed with ideas of, if I could make a healthy dessert, or if we could just eat fruit as a dessert, we could still have dessert, but avoid the white sugar. So I was talking to a good friend of mine Saturday evening, and she said she had started using maple syrup and honey instead of white sugar. So I thought, that's exactly what I've just been thinking about, so I'm going to try it. So here we go. Today I'm making oatmeal chocolate chip bars, which are fabulous and really easy, and really don't have tons of white sugar. I've got my butter melting already, and it's 1 stick of butter, and it's already melted in my saucepan. So you melt that 1 stick of butter, and then you add everything else in. How simple is that? There's not a bunch of pans to use, so it's really fantastic. All right, so what you want to make sure is you add the oats and the chocolate chips last. All right, so I've got my 1/2 cup of butter, the 1 stick. Here we go with the sugar. It's supposed to take a 1/2 cup brown and a 1/2 cup white. So I'm going to go about a 1/2 cup maple syrup, and I might go a little bit shy on this just to try to help cut down on sugars also, even though these are healthier sugars. All right, so about a 1/2 cup of the maple syrup and about a 1/2 cup of raw honey. So let's see how this turns out. And it's almost snack time here, so this hopefully will be ready in time for snacks, and hopefully it will turn out. I really don't know how it's going to do, but I've been thinking about how to do this, and we're just going to go for it. All right, so I've got the maple syrup and the honey. I'm stirring it into the butter, and I think I'm going to go ahead and get my oven preheating so that it's ready to go when we're ready. All right, so I'm stirring this in, and then we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, baking soda, and salt. And do you know to get the baking powder without aluminum? I've been doing that for years. I hope you have too. All right, that's the baking powder, baking soda, and a little bit of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I guess I'll measure actually. All right, a little bit more. A lot of times with salt, I just kind of measure in my hand. All right, so we've got that in there. And then this calls for 1 egg. And I had thought if a recipe called for 2 eggs, then I would cut back on the egg to account for more liquid with my maple syrup and honey. But this is just a 1 egg recipe, so I'm not going to cut down on that. We're going to try to compensate for the extra liquid another way. Mix this egg in here, and you could use a wire whisk. I've just chosen today a wooden spoon to get this all mixed together. All right. And then we need a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And vanilla had gotten so expensive. Oh my goodness. It's come down a little bit in price, which I was so thrilled to see, because I really do like using real vanilla and not that artificial stuff. All right, and a 1/4 teaspoon and an 1/8 nutmeg. So a 1/4 cinnamon, not very much cinnamon, is it? Okay. 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon and an 1/8 nutmeg. So I'm going to use my 1/4 measuring and just go about half in there. Nutmeg is kind of unusual, but I really like it. It adds such a different flavor. It's nice to put in your oatmeal for breakfast sometimes, if you're up for it. All right. Okay, so now you have almost everything in there. And again, in this recipe, the order is somewhat important. You want to end with your oats and your chocolate chips. So don't get in a hurry and dump those chocolate chips in early. They'll melt too much. Okay, so now we're going to do, the recipe calls for a cup of flour, and I have actually started for some recipes grinding my own wheat berries, and I do it in my blend tech, and it's really easy there, and it's healthier in my opinion. You can do the research and you can read different things out there, but it's got to be healthier when you do it. You grind the wheat berries yourself, and it's got all the wheat germ and everything from the wheat in there. It's not been refined. Okay, so a cup of my flour, and because of the extra liquid, I'm going to add a little bit more flour, and let's just see what happens. I'm going to add about, I think a 1/4 cup would be good. About a 1/4 cup more flour, so we'll see. And one thing I've noticed about the flour when I grind it myself, it's not as fine as the store-bought flour, and it seems to take a little bit longer to soak in the liquid. So I think it might be a good idea today to let this set just a little bit longer than I would. You know, I'd mix it up, do everything right away normally, but I think I'm going to let this sit a little bit so that it can absorb some of that liquid. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but it's a nice, yummy looking and smelling concoction here. And all we've used is this pan. So it's nice on your hand wash items. You don't have to wash a lot of things afterwards. Okay. That mixed really well. Okay, I'm going to let that sit for a couple minutes. I'm going to set my buzzer for probably about 3 minutes and just let that flour sit to absorb the liquid, and then we'll come back and finish up. It's been 3 minutes, so let's check our batter and continue adding the recipe ingredients. Now it calls for 3/4 cup of oatmeal, of oats, and these are not the quick, these are just the old-fashioned oats. And I added a little more. I have a little bit of a rounded cup instead of 3/4, again to add, to hopefully take into account the extra liquid that I'm adding instead of the brown sugar and white sugar. So I'm stirring that in, and I've already got my pan greased. It's an 8x8 baking pan, glass baking dish. Okay, and I think it's looking pretty good. It's been a while since we've made this, so I forget exactly how the batter is supposed to look. And 3/4 cup of the chocolate chips. And if anything, I'm going a little light on the chocolate chips. I know there's sugar in here, and not everybody's going to be happy about that, about going a little bit light on these, but I don't think people will really notice. It's just slightly less. So the worst thing in here is going to be the sugar from the semi-sweet chocolate chips. And we could go, in the future, we could go with the 60% chocolate chips. And that would be even healthier. That would be less sugar. But today we're just going to go with this. See how it turns out. And if it turns out we have really cut down on our white refined sugar intake and cut down on our brown sugar. So, and let me suggest to you that if you're going to do honey, don't do just the regular honey, the processed honey, because there's really not, from what I understand, and I'm sure the research is probably all over the place, but from what I understand, there's really no difference if you get the processed refined honey. So I like to get the raw honey and then get real maple syrup. Don't get stuff that's added to it and maple syrup flavor. There's all kind of things you have to watch for on your label if you really want to get the real stuff. So we, I think, are ready to put this in the pan, and it looks great. The consistency, can you see that? It's not all runny. So we'll just see what happens. And this should be ready about in time for our snack here today. So I'm putting this in the pan. And spread it out a little bit. So this is really kind of like oatmeal chocolate chip cookies in a pan. And one reason I like this is because it's much quicker than making individual cookies. So when you need something quickly, this is a little bit, it's a lot easier and quicker. Okay, so we're ready to stick that in the oven. And it bakes for, let's see, well, does it say? Oh, 30 minutes. All right, so we'll stick this in, bake it for 30 minutes, and then see what happens. Thanks for tuning in. Don't go away. Our oatmeal chocolate chip bars are done, and I wish you could smell it, but of course you can't. But so far they look like they turned out pretty well. They're a little bit browner on the surface than maybe what we would like, but I just did them as the directions this time, 30 minutes. But I don't know that we would say they're overdone. As I'm cutting them, they seem a little bit, the texture seems a little different. Not bad, but a little more cakey than they normally are. So maybe that's from the grinding the flour myself. That could be a difference in texture as well. Not necessarily just from the change in sugar. So let's see what happens. I've been having it cool for a little bit so that we could taste it and see how it is. So here we go. You can see the chocolate chips turn out nicely in it. A little bit melty, but not too much. So let's see how it is. All right. It's very good. It tastes a little bit healthier. But again, some of that's going to be from the ground flour. Seems a little bit meatier, if you know what I mean. I think that's the flour. Maybe a little bit less sweet, as if we had used the brown sugar and the white sugar. But it's very good. I would be happy to have this.